That sounds like a disaster.
Sometimes it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was like batter on my banjolele. It was crazy.
Welcome to the Fran Snyder Podcast, where I talk to artists and music fans to explore how music connects us through great stories and experiences. Brought to you by the Listening Room Network. Today's guest, Scott and Mallory of the Rough Tumble. How are you?
Good
to see you, Fran.
Likewise. So you guys are sheltered in Alabama at the moment, staying with some friends?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, in Opelika.
Great. So let's start with how you guys met and the origin of the Rough Tumble name.
Yeah. Well, we met at a music school in 2007. It was kind of a study off campus program on Martha's Vineyard. We were there for a semester.
Mm-hmm. During the winter.
Yeah.
It's very cold.
Very cold. And from there we moved down to Asheville, North Carolina, where we joined an artist colony, an ill-fated artist colony, I might say. Mallory moved to Nashville a couple of years later. I followed suit. We started this band kind of just as a writing project in 2011.
Yeah, I was kind of doing a rock and roller thing, and Scott was doing his sad singer-songwriter thing, and we would kind of, he would play lead guitar in my band, and I would sing like backup vocals in his project, so he wasn't so alone.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah.
And then we kind of started this group, and I said, hey, what do you think about the band name, the Rough Tumble?
It was one of the first names so I was kind of hesitant to actually make this a real thing, and Scott was like, well, we should at least have a name, and I was like, okay, whatever you want is fine, and he said, how about the Rough Tumble? And I was like, good enough. We at the time, the Civil Wars were really popular, and so I had suggested maybe being the World War IIs, or the World War IIIs.
Yeah, I think
right?
we were.
Yeah, that would be funnier. But Scott wanted to take it a little more seriously. Yeah. But then within a couple of months, we both quit our other projects, and we're like, no, this is actually what we want to do. So
you could always name your albums after wars, like the Franco. This is the Franco-Prussian War album.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice. So you actually met at Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah,
we did. Yeah.
Okay. Was it romantic first or music first?
It was music first.
It was music first for about the first 5 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
I had married someone else that I had met that same semester. Scott was actually the best man in my first wedding.
So the plot thickens.
It does. It gets murky.
It turns out the best man is actually the best man, and so.
I love it. Absolutely love it. So first of all, congratulations. I don't think I've spoken to you guys in person, but you guys won the 2019 Artist of the Year at Listening Room Network.
Yes,
thank you.
We're
really pleased with that. We use Listening Room Network all the time, and it's been such a good community to be a part of for 6-7 years. I forget how long.
We were just talking about that. We don't know how long we've been. It's been years that we've been.
Yeah, I don't know how long I've been doing it either. So it's all good. I had a lot less gray hair. That's all I know. So let's talk about the community aspect. One of my many failed projects, because it started as concerts in your home, and then we had this idea to inspire house concert hosts to do small events on weeknights. So we came up with this idea called Dinner and Song, where it'd be purposely small and intimate. And you have dinner with the artist and then a one-on-one set concert. And then we came up with Dessert and Song because dinner was too much trouble. And every time we came up with an idea, I thought it had to be its own website. And it got really, really ridiculous when I got to kind of our own couch surfing site on, I don't know if you guys remember that.
Vaguely.
It was a failure. So a lot of people didn't even notice. But the idea is, as you know, as you're experiencing right now, a lot of times when you play a concert in someone's home, you become friends, and they tell you anytime you're passing through, you can always stay here. Even if, we might not be able to host a concert next time that you're passing through, but you're always welcome here. Mm-hmm. And I thought, why don't we put that idea on steroids, because there's so many hosts who go through life changes and they don't host for 6 months, you know,
Right.
but they still will receive guests and have friends, and, you know, they just don't want to do the work of marketing an event or blocking off their calendar that far ahead. But anyway, I thought, why don't we create a separate website to encourage these connections to happen? So when you're not hosting shows, you can still be hosting guests.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
And, you know, again, just this massive diversion of building this whole new site and an app and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And, you know, we just
understand massive diversions.
Yes.
Yeah, that is
right. Yes. Yeah. We'll get into your list of diversions. But anyway, it's this wonderful tradition that I try to sort of, and some people did use it, and it actually created some opportunities, but nothing to justify the amount of time and thought that went into building this thing. But so here you are in Alabama, basically taking this to its logistical limit.
Mhm.
Tell me what you guys have been doing since COVID hit and you had to cancel all this touring.
Yeah. So this was supposed to be a huge year for us. We were starting in Tallahassee, Florida at the beginning of the year, and we were driving out to California, then driving up to Alaska before we headed east again, and
it was gonna
ended
be
up in
big.
Maine, you know, toward the end of the year.
We're going to hit every corner of the United States. Like, it was going to be awesome. And this is our, I don't know if we have already met, we live in a camper. So we've been living in a camper for the last 5 years, and of our 9 years as a band. So more than half our time as a band has been spent in 16 feet of space with 2 large dogs. And we were like, this is going to be a huge year. We're going to hit every corner of the United States, and then we're going to start thinking about maybe stopping. Not stopping making music, but maybe getting like a house, or being like a normal person again. Yeah. And so we had that plan, and then COVID hit, and then Alaska was canceled, and then everything was canceled. And then we were just sort of, we cashed in, is what we did in 2020. We said, we stayed with Scott's parents for a couple of months, just to try and, while everybody was figuring out what was going on, we did some writing, we did song commissions and that sort of thing. And then staying with parents, while it can be really nice, it can also be very stressful.
Yep.
And so
every little boy at some point needs to grow up and move out of their parents' house. So that's what we did.
So we kind of just said, we're leaving, we're heading back east, and we'll figure out 2021 over back east again. And then we cashed in. We just cashed in on everyone who has ever said, hey, if you ever really need a place to stay, we can give you that. And we kind of went through that list of anyone who has ever offered that and said, you know, that cabin you have in South Carolina, is that still open during a pandemic? Or, you know, this house here from our friends here in Opelika, they said, oh yeah, sure, you can come and stay in our house for a month while we're at our lake house. And so it's just been a fantastic comeuppance, but in a good way.
Oh yeah, yeah. And you know, these are concert hosts who've who are hosting us, and if only there was a website, you know, that could connect musicians to these opportunities, because they are plentiful.
Yeah. I was just ahead of my time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're here in Alabama for the month, and then we're going to South Carolina for 2 months for a cabin in the woods.
Yeah, actually, the small town that the film Deliverance was filmed in,
nice.
That is where we're going to be staying.
So this might be the last time you see us.
Yeah.
Well, if you do leave that town, you will certainly have stories.
Yeah.
Stories. Have you guys met Ronnie Cox?
Yes.
Yeah,
you know, famous movie star turned folk singer, and I've heard both Burt Reynolds and him tell stories about when they filmed Deliverance, and that is just an encyclopedia of crazy stories. Those guys.
Don't tell us anymore.
Yeah.
We have to.
Yeah. It's well, you'll know that 2 of those 4 guys were certifiably insane, and they won't be there. So there you go.
All right.
So I guess another kudos for you guys won Americana Song of the Year. Tell us about that song and how that happened.
Yeah, we won the 2019 Independent Music Awards America Song of the Year, and it's our song "The Hardest Part" came off of our last album
called "Howling Back at the Wounded Dog," and it was the whole record was just we had just lost our dog Butter, and we'd gone through a series of losses that whole year. It had just been a really terrifically bad year for us, and so we wrote an album full of songs that were just howls back into the universe, hoping that somebody could hear us. And that particular song, "The Hardest Part," it was written after a huge fight that we had. We were trying to climb a mountain in Vermont, and we don't climb mountains, but we thought it would maybe be our thing.
Well, hey, you're called the Rough and Tumble, so you need to.
It's more tumble than like roughing it.
You got to work on that name.
We were about halfway up the mountain, and we got into this huge argument, and then we decided we did not want to climb a mountain anymore, but we did want to keep fighting. So we fought the whole way back down the mountain. And we were still fighting by after dinner. It was just such a long day. And I was like, I have a great idea. Why don't we try and write a song while we're still really mad at each other? And we did. And that was the song that kind of came out of it. And it's, as we had been playing that song out, people really took to it because it feels like it can go any direction. It feels relational, it feels political, it feels social, it feels, even just within yourself. The hardest part is over, until the next hardest part. Like we were all feeling that. And we submitted, the song for the award, and we were thrilled. We heard that Tom Waits was one of the judges, and so we were freaking out. And so, but I think it just sort of fell at the right time. Like we had just gone into a pandemic, and all these other things that were happening in 2020. Hearing the phrase "the hardest part is over" until the next hardest part is a very 2020 sort of sentiment. Lyric, and so we were thrilled, I think, with the timing too. So the fight was worth it.
Yeah. And now your band is officially called the Cozy Rest Stop.
That's right. Not a bad band name.
That actually reminds me of Truck Stop Honeymoon. You know that band out of out of Kansas. Fan commissions. So something that helped you guys ease the transition financially. You started writing songs for fans. Tell me how that idea germinated and how you marketed it. I imagine you went straight to your fans with this idea.
Well, truthfully, one of our, actually a house show host came to us. We had just played their show 2 weeks before, and when the pandemic hit, they reached out to us and kind of said, "Hey, would you consider writing a song? Like, we just want to support that." And that's kind of the thing about this community is that was one of the first things that happened after, like within 48 hours after we realized that things are going to be canceled, at least for 2 weeks. We heard from a ton of house show hosts who called us or emailed us and said, "Are you guys okay? Do you need anything?" And that was kind of the case with this particular person. They kind of just said, "Hey, can you write a song for our music series? You just played it. We had a great time. Just write us a theme song," sort of thing. And we wrote it, and then it came quickly. And I think that's kind of what happens with us is when we're in a disaster, when we're in really trying times, the songs tend to come a little faster for us. And so we were feeling that stress, and it came really quickly. And we decided to sort of just ride that out and say, okay, we did this thing. Does anybody else want a song? And people immediately jumped on it. And I think once we were rolling with that and people could see it happening, and we were putting them out once a week as well. So we were uploading them onto Bandcamp.
We started an album called Everything Goes Viral But My Band. And and we would just add to that every week with every couple weeks with a new song. And
so it sort of snowballed from there, and we ended up with 14
songs.
So every week there'd be a new song. And so it was, we feel incredibly fortunate. We feel fortunate that, people reached out to us and kind of gave us that idea. We feel fortunate that other people thought it was a good idea. And we feel really fortunate that we were sort of in a place to be able to write that quickly, because we we tend to write quickly. We write a lot between the two of us. That's why we started this group, was for the writing. And but it was just the right place.
If you are enjoying this podcast, can you pause for a moment to like, review, and subscribe? Please help the world discover our music community and the wonderful artists we support. Your feedback makes a difference. How did you deliver those songs? Were they rough demos? Were they finished recordings? You know, to what extent did you deliver these commissions?
A little bit of both.
Yeah, at the beginning of quarantine, we just had an iPhone and a cassette recorder, like a Tascam cassette recorder. So
was it a four track Tascam?
Yeah.
I had it.
It's great. Yeah, I mean, like you can. I mean, there is like a tape hum to every recording you do, but like it's kind of fun. It's kind of
nostalgic.
It is, yeah.
So we would start after we would finish writing the song, we would take a little video and send it to whoever had commissioned the song and say, "Is this what you were looking for?" And almost, with the exception, I think, 2 songs. Everybody was like, "Yep, that's what I'm looking for."
So live demo on a video, like on YouTube.
Yeah, just on a video, just to make sure it's what they wanted before we, set everything. By everything, I just mean a cassette recorder. And record it. And then
then we got our Amazon order and we got an actual like digital interface. And so like the latter songs are recorded digitally, but then we piped it back through the tape recorder to give it like that
consistency.
That nice tape hiss. And
that way it blends in real nicely with your Rush Permanent Waves cassette when you're on the road trip.
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. Do you remember? Well, you guys are probably too young to remember the days when we used to take a regular boombox that had like the double tape player, and what you would do to do multi-track recording, there was only one track, but you would record your first pass, and then you would put a piece of Scotch tape over the erase head.
That's right. Yep.
And then record again over it, and it would blend the two things together. So there was no undoing the mix.
Right.
But that was like the early days of 12-year-olds recording more than one track at a time. It's essentially kind of what's happening with what people do with loop pedals now. But it was just stick a little piece of Scotch tape over the erase head and hit record.
Yeah, I did that once in like 8th grade or something, and just thought, this is way too much.
We've got to get digital.
Yeah, where's digital?
All right, so my notes are a little messy. Silver Linings, you said something about Double Americana. Tell me what that was about.
Yeah, so Double Americana, we've been live streaming every Wednesday at noon. This project we're calling Double Americana.
We've been doing it for a long time. So we've been doing it for about 3 years,
3 years
now.
Yeah.
Every Wednesday at noon Eastern we go live, but we kind of upped the audience once the pandemic hit. More people started tuning in, and I think what was pretty great about Double Americana is that we have already been doing it. So when everything went virtually, we were like, oh, we already know how to do this. This is okay. Like, we're going to be okay. And so that was a big one. But we also extended our weekly live stream for a little while, for about 2 months. We did something called the Rumbly Tummy, where we went live every Saturday morning and we tried to cook something. And while it was baking, we would play a few songs. And
that sounds like a disaster.
Sometimes it was.
Yeah.
There was like batter on my banjolele. It was crazy. But people really showed up for that. So that was very cool. But yeah, I think that we've just been having to sort of exercise even the muscles that we were already exercising, we were having to fine tune a little bit better, knowing that this was the only way that people could access us. And so I think that sort of was the silver lining of technology, at least, is that we were just sort of like learning to flex a little bit more and work our way and figure out what people needed too. I think we were really trying to figure out how to be honest about our situation and say, hey, this really sucks for everybody, but also to be the kind of people who can say it sucks, but we're still showing up, and let's try and like have a good time and kind of bring people out of, you know, the monotony of being in a pandemic.
Right. So, and you guys are really amazing with the breadth of projects that you guys work on. You have a little cartoon strip, and now I'm hearing about Be Good Little Children, which I love the tagline. Tell us about that project.
Yeah. So a few years ago, we started kind of dialing in on some of these stories that we'd heard, kind of spooky stories that parents in a lot of different places and cultures would tell their kids to get them to fall in line, you know, to get them to kind of obey. Like there's this story that I grew up with in Central California, sort of the legend of La Llorona, who is this woman who wanders the river at night, and if a child gets too close, she'll reach out and pull them in, because she's looking for her lost children. And it's just this like bone-chilling story that, you know, that was told on, you know, on playgrounds and stuff.
And it really started to like kind of tickle our brains in this way. We had a after a show down in Crawfordville, Florida, there was this gentleman named Gator who said, you should come out and have a drink with me and my friends tomorrow night. And we were like, sure. We don't usually say yes, but his name was Gator, and we were in Florida, so we felt like it was a good move. And so we went, and he told us about this story of bloody bones. And he said when he was a kid, he grew up in the swamps of Florida, and his grandmother, there would be this sound like it was a baby crying or screaming. And it was actually this Black Panther that was on their property that was like wandering back and forth. And his grandmother always called it bloody bones. And she said, if you don't behave, I'm going to throw you out there with bloody bones. And I was like, that explains a lot about why this guy's name is Gator now, but also like what an interesting story. And so we kind of started collecting these tidbits like around the country, and then we did a little bit more exploration, and we found that this is such a weirdly common thing for parents to devastate their children into obeying. And so we
I mean, even Santa Claus can be considered
totally
yes,
heaven and hell.
Yeah.
You know, like it's all, you know, it's all kind of, you know, wrapped up in like, what are the stories that control us, and what are the you know, what do we believe, you know, that kind of determines our actions. And it's a story that like we've seen play out all across 2020, and you know, in the political sphere and the sociological sphere, and like
interpersonal.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
And very few people know that Santa Claus actually went to hell. So
that actually scared me.
Does Hansel and Gretel fall into that? Is that one of those stories? I don't recall that if there was a moral to that other than just don't hang out with.
Yeah. Stop eating, you know, processed food, you know. Processed sugar. Yeah.
That is kind of a thing. That was one of the things that we were trying to figure out too, like what's the difference between like a fairy tale and what we're calling the Lullafrights. And I think what it came down to is that it was a specific creature that was used or made up that would get you specifically if you did this one particular thing. Like another example is Roggenmum. She's a corn monster in Germany, and she's in the cornfields. And if you wander in the cornfields when you're not supposed to, she'll grab you. And
what about the chupacabra in Mexico?
So that I think that would be a great example. Yeah.
Although, so most of these, I don't know too much about the chupacabra, but like a lot of these stories had just very specific instructions for children. Like La Llorona is
stay away from the river.
Like it's practical. Like it's a parent saying to a child, don't go near the river, because if you do, you might fall in, you might drown. But instead of just saying, I don't want you to hurt yourself, I'm scared for you, they've scared the child, you know. And it's
a way of like transferring their own fear into a child through a monster.
Right.
And it is kind of it's been a wild ride, I think, for our own minds trying to like break this down. And it just kept coming back to what story is controlling you. And so we've put together a book and some prints and all kinds of like little, things that we're sending out. And we're kind of hoping, we're calling it Volume 1 in hopes that as we're sending these out, more people will tell us about more myths that they've heard as a kid or from around the world. And then we can come out with a Volume 2. And hopefully every year the Lullafrights will make an appearance and then go back into their coffin.
Yeah. Or it could be like a Mel Brooks History of the World Part 1, where you just never finish it. It's like an...
Like Sufjan Stevens has the 50 States Project, and
I think he got to 2.
He did 2 states. It's just like,
well, I think the cautionary tales thing. I think there's probably needs to be one about staying away from folk musicians.
Totally.
So tell me. So you should hold up those books again. You said they're published how? Because you got into some like book, you're doing your own bookbinding or something?
Yeah, we're doing our own bookbinding. So we got these printed, and then we actually sat and put them together and then bound them I bound them by hand, and I made Scott fold all the paper for me.
Nice.
And the CD comes in the back, and they're just they kind of expound on, like, some of them tell the stories of the actual characters. Some are stories that Scott has written or that I have written, and it's just sort of this way of digging even deeper into the Lullafrights and getting a little scared.
Yeah, it's been a fun project. We love Halloween.
Yeah. So are you pushing it for Halloween? Are you doing anything?
We are. Yeah. It comes out October 2nd, and we'll kind of just be. I mean, if you go to our Facebook page or Twitter account right now, all of our photos are spooky.
We were actually a little worried that people were going to think that we were a goth folk band, but we're not. But this is a fun way to sort of express our.
You can just own it for a few months. We're goth folk until November 1st, and then
exactly.
Clean slate.
So they're coming out on October 2nd officially, but we're doing pre-orders right now, and we have different tiers too. We did a collaboration with a local potter in Nashville.
Yeah.
So little lullipots, and it's just been such a way to sort of just like stretch our creativity and our dark side.
Yeah, years from now, your fans will be talking about, the Rough Tumble. I used to love that band, but when COVID hit, they went through this goth phase.
Oh man, it's totally our Garth Brooks Chris Gaines
period of time. What's going on with them?
Well, you guys are awesome. It's so good to reconnect with you. I think last time I saw you guys play was in Ybor City, near Tampa, at Gizmundo. Little charming little backyard with your 2 dogs.
Yeah.
You've lost one of those dogs and replaced it since?
With another dog who looks identical.
She's kind of a wild one too. They're both rescues too, so they come with a little bit of baggage. But the new one actually, she sings along.
Nice.
So if you remember, our other dogs would just sleep on stage when we were
pretty much
stage.
Yeah.
But this one cannot stay on the stage. She howls along with everything that we do. We actually entered her into a research project for Harvard. They're doing a research project on dogs that howl along to music, and she was accepted as a student.
No, I didn't go to Harvard, but my dog did.
I know.
Well, she's actually getting a diploma in canine musicology.
Nice.
So we're gonna get like Harvard mom, Harvard dad sweatshirts.
Awesome. Then your dog's gonna have this attitude and work for a hedge fund.
Yeah. And they won't stop bringing it up.
He went to Harvard.
All right, well, you guys are great. We'll share your links in the show notes. This will be both on YouTube and all the podcasting apps. So good luck out there. Say hi to Bailey. Say hi to all the kind hosts who are putting you up during this pandemic.
We can't wait to get back out there and play some more house shows and
we'll definitely look us up when you get back to Florida.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah. All right, take care.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the Fran Snyder Podcast. Please subscribe, like, or share to help your friends discover this community. Also, I'd love to hear from you with any feedback or suggestions you have. And if you'd like to learn more about house concerts and listening rooms around the world, please visit and join listeningroomnetwork.com. You can email me from there. See you next time on the Fran Snyder Podcast.